Shalom to you. In this video, we are going to solve probability problems, ones that are mostly based on geometry. Then probability is a chance of something happening. It's the likelihood that something will happen or it will not happen. It ranges from 0 to 1. So probability cannot be negative and it cannot be anything more than 1. It cannot be 1.0001. No. 1 means it must certainly happen. For example, we must all die. Every human person must die. That is a certainty. The probability that we will die is 1. So anything that will not happen, the probability is 0. Then in the middle is like 0.5. But key thing, remember, probability is always a fraction or decimal or percent. It's part of a whole. Two basic things you need to calculate probability. Find the all possible outcomes, the possibilities, count them, and then find among those possible outcomes, which ones are favorable, which ones are you asked to find. So that's the favorable part is the total over whole. So favorable over whole or total, favorable number over total number. So that's the probability. And remember, when you have the word and in probability, you multiply those probabilities. If you have the number or, you add. Okay. So for example, find the probability that a point is selected at random on AE. So AE is the whole line segment here. So given, what is the probability that that point falls on BC? So our total, again, is going to be favorable over total. Okay, so the favorable is BC. The distance of BC over the length of BC over the length of AE. And again, use the distance, absolute value, -8 minus 8. Because the two endpoints on AE is -8 and 8. And then BC, the point at B, is absolute value, -6 minus, that's the definition of distance. And then C is 0. So absolute value -6 is going to be, minus 0 is -6. And -8 is -16. So absolute value of -6 is 6, -16 is 16. Absolute value will always be positive. So now we can simplify to in simplest form, write them in simplest form. Okay, 2 go into 6 is 3, and 2 go into 16 is 8. So this is the answer in fraction. We are asked to write as a fraction, as a decimal, and a percent. So a little practice. So divide that 3 by 8, you get 0.375. And that's the answer in decimal. Multiply by 100, you get 37.5%. So these are the possible ways we can write that probability for number 1. Okay, that's number 1. So number 2, since we already know the probability of the total is 16, so it's going to be the same for all of it. So we can just go ahead and find that's the probability of AE is 16 and the probability of BD. So again, now we don't have the bar in them because we are finding the distance between the distance or the length of that segment. So it's going to be what? The B, about B is -6. So it's absolute value of -6 minus at D, DDD is 4. Okay, and this is 16. Forget the absolute value. So it's going to be -10 over 16, which is 10 over 16. And if we divide both sides by what goes into 10 and 16, 2, you get 5 over 8. And that is in simplest form. Again, we can change it to decimal, which is 0.625. And if we multiply by 100, we get 62.5%. Okay? Next, we look at number 3. So number 3, we are looking for CE and then over the total. So the absolute value, we know the AE is 16 again, and our C is a 0. So absolute value of 0 minus 8. Again, I want you to keep applying the distance formula so you get used to it, get more used to it. So this is the absolute value of negative 8 over 16, which is 8 over 16, which is 1/2, which is 0.5, multiplied by 100, you get 50%. Number 4. We have AD over AE. Again, AE is the same. And AD, A, we have negative 8 minus D, we have 4. So that's negative 12 because they are both negative. You add them. Absolute value of negative 12 is positive 12 over 16. Simplify, divide both sides, both top and bottom by 4. You get 3 over 4. And that's in simplest form. Divide 3 by 4. We get 0.75 in decimal. Multiply by 100. We get 75%. Okay. All right, how about this one? Angle. If 2 of the 5 angles are selected at random, what is the probability that neither of the angle is acute? So it said 2 things happen. So we're going to have the probability of the first. Probability of first is not acute. And so that and is going to be multiplication. And the probability of the second is not acute as well. So none of them is acute. So we already have the total. There are 5 angles here. 5 angles. And out of these 5 angles, acute is less than 90. So 60, 60, 43 are acute. So 2 are non-acute. So probability of the first one not being acute should be 2 over 5 times the probability of the second not acute again. Now, after we remove the first one, there are only 4 angles left. So because we don't put it back, so we have 4 left. And since we took one of those that are acute, that are non-acute, only one non-acute is left. So we have 1 over 4 also for that probability. Simplify that, multiply, you get 2 over 20, which is simplified to 1/10, and divide, you get 0.1, multiply by 100, you get 10%. Okay, one more. What if 2 are chosen, and then what is the probability that one of them is obtuse? So again, the probability that the first is obtuse, and the second pick is non-obtuse because only one of them is non-obtuse. Now, is either the first one is obtuse and the second one is not obtuse, or the first one is non-obtuse. And the second one is obtuse. So you have to consider all the conditions. So now the probability that the first one, now obtuse is more than 90 and less than 180. So there's only one obtuse. So the favorable is obtuse 1 over the total, which is 5. So this is and, so it's going to be multiplication. So, and the second one, again, after we remove the first angle, only 4 is left. So the number is going to be reduced. Now, out of those 4, how many is non-obtuse? Non-obtuse. Well, all the rest, because I have only one obtuse, so that is gone. So the rest, all the 4 that are left are non-obtuse. So either one of them could be picked. So that's 4 out of 4. And so that's simplified to 1. So we end up having 1/5 on this side. Or means plus. So we are going to get the probability on this side and we add to the probability of this side. Okay? So what's the probability of the first one is non-obtuse. Okay? Again, so the first one will be non-obtuse, will be 4 of them. So it's going to be 4 out of the whole 5. And that's multiplication. The second one is obtuse. Okay, so you picked 1 out of the 4 non-obtuse. But the total, again, is reduced by 1, so it's 4 left. Now, out of those 4, we still have obtuse, because obtuse was not removed. Only that one obtuse, we have that 1/4. Multiply or simplify. Again, this 4 can cross out. We have 1/5 left. So the probability of this 1/5 plus 1/5, they have a common denominator, so you add the top and keep the bottom. That's the rule of adding. Okay, that's the fraction, and if we divide 2 by 5, we get 0.4, and multiply by 100, we get 40%. Okay, you can tell I'm doing this in the school, the bell is ringing. Okay, so I hope you do this. Good luck, have fun.